Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object Podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of the creative effectiveness ad tech platform Automated Creative. And this is a weekly podcast about the future of data-driven marketing. We've done, I think, 300 odd episodes of this podcast and it's been going for about 6 years. Madness. And it's such a good fun thing to do, and every week or so I interview one of our industry's leaders about the future of data-driven marketing, and this week's no different. I'm on a call with Tom Telford, who is Chief Digital Officer at Clarity. So Tom, for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you do, could you give us a bit of background?
Yeah, thanks Tom, and thanks for having me on today. So obviously Tom Telford, I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Clarity. We're an integrated marcoms business. I started my career in 2002 or something, just after the dot-com bubble burst and just before Google got good and sort of fell into digital. I've been in a mix of dot-coms and agencies until founding an agency with my friend Will in 2010. And then we exited that in 2021 to Clarity. And since then, we've been working here. And my job's to do all the digitals in an integrated agency, so growth marketing, data analytics, creative studio, but also just trying to help the broader business, the communications and public affairs, use channels differently in innovative ways.
So you've set up an agency, you've exited an agency, and now you've stayed in an agency. So you've seen, there's not many people who've done that. So what would your advice be to someone who's looking at your career thinking, right, I want to do that? They're getting into the industry, they're doing all the right stuff. What's your advice to someone who wants to get ahead in this changing and strange world we live in?
I think it's a couple of things, like to focus on what you said about change. I think that's really important because your view and what you want out of your career will change. I mean, we're mid-40s now, so I've been at it for 20 odd years. And I think, the views are different, but fundamentally, I think there's something about understanding the value and the impact you have, especially at the start of your career. And I was thinking about this for today, I wish someone had told me like how to perceive what I was doing, what value or what impact did I have as an account exec or whatever through to now. The more senior you get, and therefore the more older you get, the more you understand where you sit in the pecking order and what you do eventually filters down to a bottom line somewhere or another. But I think there's something about, like, if someone had taught me about what I would do better, what I should have done better in my 20s, not just hitting OKRs and doing KPIs and things, but understanding the commercial impact of the thing I did at that point, even if it was tiny, and then how that would have made me much better in my 40s, I would have said. Like, there's a bit where you just pad around in obscurity in your 20s and you sort of half work it out in your 30s, and when you get to your 40s, you're quite good at it. But had you thought a little bit more about the value, the impact, whatever that mechanism is, I think it's really helpful, and people don't. And I think it makes it harder to understand where you sit in the world. It's a bit obscure, really, until you get a bit more senior about sort of the way the business works. Unless you've done an MBA, which you probably haven't, especially if you started in an agency, especially. I think that's just a really important skill that's sort of missing, that I think it's quite easy to impart.
So if you were going to go back in time and tap yourself on the shoulder and say, Tom, this is the value that you have, what would you say to yourself? What would be that message?
I don't know. I think it's because there's an expectant commerciality. I think if you ask your boss, if you ask your boss where the money is, in an agency world, which I've been more in than a client side rather than both, I would say it's about, there's a few things that you can impact. Is your billability, the efficiency on account, understanding those metrics that make you effective in your role. Because ostensibly, if you're chasing more seniority and more money, then the fastest way to get there is to add value in your existing job. So whilst keeping a weather eye on your current job, if you were asking someone said to me, like, if I had the sort of the balls or the cleverness to go to my boss and be like, what impact have I had on the bottom line? What am I doing at this point? You're not going to making millions, but like, that's not the point. But the point is, like, someone nowadays goes, I want a pay rise. And we're like, cool. I want 10 units of money. I'm like, sweet. How are you going to make 30 more units of money? And they go, well, that's not fair. And I'm like, well, that's the game. So like, how do we talk about that? Well, I've been here a year. Cool. Have you changed your behaviors? No. So you can end up in this sort of commercial transaction. I think there's something about someone saying, look, I want to get to this point. How do I get there? I don't really understand what impact on the business financially I'm having now, or commercially, should I say. But it's pretty well mapped. in a decent company. So if you understood that and you understand the next job, then you can start to lean yourself, not just in job specs, but commerciality. And I think it's almost taboo, especially in Britain. We don't talk about commercials enough. I think it's pretty easy to talk to be honest. It's pretty black and white.
Yeah. Well, it's been like I often say this in sales calls. I'm gonna talk about the awkward thing, which is money now, and I feel nothing saying that now. I'm just like, cool, but you can just feel everyone go, oh, come on, man. We're a business. You're a business. Let's do some business. Come on, that's all right.
You'll be okay.
So that's great. Be more commercial earlier on is a great bit of advice for someone getting in the industry. But what advice do you give specifically to data-driven marketers to be better at their job?
I like this question. I think there's lots of different ways to approach that. For me, I think there's a bit of basics in campaigns, and we do a lot of work across lots and lots of different channels. And there's some fundamentals we came up with, like what makes a good campaign and what doesn't make a good campaign. There's nothing groundbreaking what I'm going to say, just to be really clear. It's like boring spoiler alert. But like, if you look at every campaign, we have this thing called ICM, which means everything we do has to be insightful, has to be creative, and it has to be measured. So when you look at the success of a campaign, so it's not just the data-driven marketing, but I do think it's really important here because data-driven people often look straight to the outcome and the measurement. But what insight did you take in when designing a campaign or setting it up? And is that rounded? How are you appealing creative? What are you being different with in your creative? And how are you measuring it? And what you find is most people like two of those, not all three. So a lot of performance marketeers will almost dodge the insight a little bit and sort of infer from experience, love measurement, might like it if they're doing social, they might like creative, but PPC arguably. A lot of brand people love insight, they love the creative, hate the measurement piece. But actually, if your client or you are a good marketeer, you do need all three of those things to actually be like the pillars for success. So I think that is my piece of advice. Think everything cynically, like, is my insight, point A, is it any good? Is it actionable? How does that affect my creative? And it doesn't just mean shiny, beautiful things, but like the thing that I'm putting in front of someone. And then am I honest about measuring the impact, the value, the return?
And that KPI, that ICM thing, would really push your people to be all-rounders, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at least one of those is going to be uncomfortable to someone.
Totally.
Right. So
exactly.
therefore, so your approach is really like helping people, up their weaknesses, or at least paying attention to them. So that is nice. I might well steal that. But we're going to talk. We're going to talk. And you would not be the first guest where I've taken strong guidance from. But we're now going to talk about GEO, right? So, Tom, what is that? What is GEO? 19th of Jan 2026.
Oh, great question. Well, I mean, GEO is about optimizing AI effectively in the same way that SEO was back in the day. So SEO being search engine optimization, which I think most people on the listening will have a good praise of. GEO is generative engine optimization. So it's just the evolution, really, of SEO. So
one thing, Tom, I did do a poll on LinkedIn about this. Like, what should we call this thing? LLM search, AI search? And it's like, we've got this real ability in our industry to make things sound way more complicated than they are. And like GEO, it's like, what? I just thought at least this time around we could have something that's really blunt and obvious, but it's not. Anyway, it's not your choice, but that's my bugbear. Anyway, carry on. Sorry, Tom.
But I think we've had our fair share of like, what is it internally? Because in our organisation we work globally, point A, and we also work a lot in PR, effectively, in communications, and a lot in marketing and digital. Quite different groups of humans. So SEO, AI optimization. I agree with you. Like, we sort of stuck with GEO for a while because it's, from what we'll probably talk about today, the way one optimizes it feels like the right expression for an active marketing. We're actually doing the thing. We're optimizing the thing for a gain somewhere. But I agree with you. And it changes as well. There's horses for courses.
Well, today it's GEO. So what is GEO? What is GEO today, Tom? Sorry, I derailed.
It's about no, not at all. It's about optimizing what generative engines say about your brand and sort of when they choose to say it. So how do you influence Gemini? Or how do you influence ChatGPT or Perplexity or Grok? Where are you in there at the moment? Where might you want to show up? What conversations do you want to be part of? AI, I mean, I'm going to say AI is a revolution because it's the most glib thing that's going to come out of anyone's mouth on any podcast right now. But like SEO, Google in the first place was a really good revolution. All of a sudden, we've had this sidekick since the early noughties, which helped us find data without having to use books and telephones as much. That was great. GEO is just an evolution of that. But the reality, the way that it works, SEO in Google, old Google, you put in something, I want to know about insurance, and it gives you a list of links. You click through them, you make an informed decision. It really sped the world up. This time around, as we all know, you type in something about insurance, and then it not only does that in its head, then it spits out an answer based on what you want and your preference, and that changes. And that can be different every time. And it will be informed, and it will have a wide range of things that it's thinking about. What's fascinating is the way as a sort of B2B marketing, how it compresses the sales funnel is absolutely incredible. It creates a lot of opportunity, but it also creates a lot of fear. I think the industry is pretty interesting at the moment, looking into marketing, especially data-driven marketing. But ultimately, we are trying, in the same way we used to do SEO on Google, et al., we are trying to do a very similar thing here. We're trying to just show up better in the LLMs.
So, the interesting story. I was having a meeting. They watch myself here. I was having a meeting with someone who works in the industry, and their product was not showing up in GEO, AI search, whatever you want to call it. And so the big dogs had come down and said, "Oi, digital marketing, sort it out. We need to show up. We need to show up better in GEO search results." Is it a GURP? I think he had a SERP. Oh, anyway, whatever. Let's move on.
Sounds painful.
It really does. And this person turned around and said, "You're speaking to the wrong person, because it's SEO, right? How well do you show up for insurance or travel or
whatever,
perfume or whatever it is? But the reason that this brand was not performing in GEO was because the product wasn't very good, and it was getting bad reviews, and so that was getting crawled, and it was going, look, this product's full of this thing, so therefore it's not very good for this thing over here." So this person went up and said, "Look, no, you need to sort your product out, because this is not just a marketing problem." So I'm curious to know where that balance is, right? So yes, you can. So part of GEO, as I understand it, is having good SEO anyway, but really, if the small print's no good, or the content's no good, or the product's no good, how can a marketer even start to deal with that?
That's a great point. That's probably my favourite bit of all of this, is that it isn't one person's preserve. And actually, when you look at channels and the way we operate marketing or communications, we like giving responsibility to a person, making them, that's your thing, that's what you need to go and get, coverage, or sales, or whatever. GEO is the confluence of PR, comms, SEO, content, and social. So depending on the setup of a company, they're right. It isn't just the SEO team's problem, but it's also just not the comms team's problem, or the product team, or the SEO team. And that's what I am seeing in the market. We talk to a lot of clients. We have a lot of clients around the world, and some really famous companies, and some less so famous companies, but really complicated setups. There's a really interesting mix in our world. The one thing that we're seeing is, it isn't one person's responsibility, and that's why it's brilliant and really difficult at the same time. GEO fundamentally isn't difficult. GEO, optimizing LLMs, whatever we choose to call it, is just best practice. So if you're actually quite good at brand and performance, and you've got your reputation sorted and you understand your audience, you're probably all right. And that sparks a sort of 40s SEO snake oil gold rush as well. And there's loads of people going around saying, "Oh, you're ruined unless you do these 3 things." Well, that's actually nonsense. If you're actually, you're taking SEO seriously, you're taking your brand seriously, your media relations, your socials there. We all have issues. Like you say, if there's a problem in a review, that might impact how it thinks about you, depending on what the question is, the context of the question. But the reality is everyone's sort of, because they're doing activities, especially the brands we work with, they're already trying to work. So it's an interesting point.
It's a ginormous if. You're like, if. In my experience of brands, there's very few people who are doing all of those things really well. And the the thing that you probably shouldn't say out loud in this industry is that we don't always work for the best brand in the market. We don't always work for the
No,
most ethical, for the best product, the best company. Do you know? We don't. Like it's not a luxury that of choice that we most people get, if anyone. So invariably, we're not going to be doing great comms with a great product, great social. There'll be probably a cluster F of all of those things.
I totally agree.
So someone's listening to you going, God, Tom, you seem to really understand. Tom, you, not Tom, me. You really seem to understand this. Like, what are the basics that someone can start doing when they are in a situation where it's not perfect?
Good question. So I think you break it down to the constituent parts, and I'll talk a bit in a minute about joint objectives because I think that's a bigger issue in larger companies. But at a fundamental, like, how do you do it? The big ones are really content and a sort of comms media relations. So if you want to influence prompts around a subject or a subject you want to be known for, a product you want to be compared against, or I don't know, some news, a world, some knowledge, you need to write about it. You need to write about it on your domain, but also not on your domain, because ostensibly the LLMs will be looking at the whole piece and be like, God, you're really known for this. You're talking about it, and other people talking on that topic about you, about it. So you are ostensibly a thought leader, which is again sort of best practice and logical. But your content strategy on and off site, and then your media relations are really, really important. So, and that's all to do with where the whichever AI surface you're into, ChatGPT or Gemini, they've all got their nuances where they pick their citations. Like, what are they ingesting to give you the answer? So, really easy things to do: type in some prompts that you want to be known for, look who it's talking about, and look where it's referencing, and think about those sites. And there are tools. We have built one where you can. It will give you the list and also the sort of the area, what type of website is talking, because then that impacts your media relations. But then actually your social, again, are you appearing? Things like Reddit in our world become really important, where we might not normally put it as part of a Marcoms campaign. It actually sits really importantly. Wikipedia, we are seeing really positive results, but obviously really hard to, you just got to do it right in the first place, and it's got its own ecosystem. We see a lot on those at Quora, things like that from social. There's that side of things. Fundamental SEO still remains. Like, is it accessible? Is the website geared right? They're like foundationals. But actually, yeah, what is the content? Is it around these prompts? What are these prompts? And how are you using your whoever does stuff off the website to engage that? Well, I think one of the issues is we have from a media relations sense, PR and comms world, we have our media plans which still exist. So we're still trying to go after, I don't know, I'm going to be really cheeky, but like the New York Times and whatever, Forbes for a B2B client. That may or may not impact an LLM. It still will impact the brand. But actually, we might now be saying, a big lump of this retainer now should go after, like, I don't know, Insurance Monthly magazine or something we normally wouldn't bother going after, or like Insurance Brokers of Detroit. And you're like, okay, that's niche. Do you want us to go after this? But the reality is, GEO creates this tension between each channel's individual objective and what people are paying for or working towards doing, and then the blob in the middle. If you have these four blobs of the disciplines, and the blob in the middle is GEO. And that's really, really interesting in our seat, especially, but in the world. How do you get everyone to talk together? Often communications and marketing don't communicate, actually, ironically. They do quite different separate budgets, objectives, KPIs. So part of this is all about making it, to your original question, almost like, how does it work? Well, they're the two biggest things you can do. But fundamentally, turning it upside down, one of the big issues we're seeing, loads and loads of interest in it, but there's quite a lot of painful internal conversations that need to. You can't just chuck money at it to make it work. You do need to sort of think holistically about how academic is your market setup.
Did you know what this sounds like? Heaven on earth for an agency, because my favourite phrase I've used for like a year is, "Where there's mystery, there's margin." Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, you can't just throw money on it. You can't just give it to one team. But we've all got to get together, and so that. So all right. So where are you? Where are you on paid within? You called it services, so I'll take that. I saw even today that the paid products rolling out. Are we just going to get brands going, sod it on GEO? We'll just buy whatever ad placement underneath the first prompt response. Is that just the lazy person's way of doing it, or is that how are you seeing that space?
Yeah, the paid thing's interesting because it will dictate how people take it seriously in some ways. I think to your point, a lot of people are waiting to hear whether it's how it's going to be monetized. Google is split. We have normal Google AI overviews, and Gemini all at the same time. So there's going to be a lot of shakedown at the moment. I do think some people are waiting because sometimes it is easier to pay. But the reality is that sort of the answers from the LLMs are so become so ubiquitous in the buying journey that paid is one part of it. But trust, a bit like when PPC ads came over the top of Google, I think the trust thing will happen the same way. People will trust an organic listing more than a paid one. The same thing will happen in the LLMs. It just creates a really, really interesting advertising mechanism as well for us as part of a bigger campaign.
So, I mean, this isn't a very good question, but what I'm really interested in is your feel for this stuff, because we set up Automated Creative in 2017 because we knew that AI and creativity at some point would squish together quite a lot later than we thought. But anyway, that's fine. We're still here. But I really yo-yo with AI. Like sometimes, this is brilliant. Like on one end of it, I feel that when it's things that you don't know about or really care about, it feels brilliant. Right, so if I'm like, I need to do an invite for my daughter's 8th birthday, you're like unicorns, fairies, chocolate, rainbows, boom, right? I care about my daughter's birthday party, but not that much. The invite is pretty low down in my life's priorities, right? And equally, like, all right, I'm going to Bristol for the weekend. What are the 3 places I should eat? Where's the best coffee? I don't really care, but and it's fast, and it's quick, it's cheap. But then when it's like, right, okay, I this is really business critical to automate creative, and then you use an LLM and it comes back and you're like, no, it's not quite good enough. So there's this. So I'm just curious to know, like, with your own use of AI within your job and your life, like, when it comes to important things, there is a massive trust issue for me personally, where I'm like, that's not right, or that's not good enough, or I don't trust you. Whereas on Google, you've got this kind of sense of like, well, I'll shop around a bit and I'll make my own decision. I know everyone's trying to sell to me. So where are you with that conundrum between speed and efficiency and trust?
Yeah, great question. Few things from a commercial perspective. When people say, I want GEO, it's a bit like when social came, said, I want some social. What do you want out of it? So I think, to your point, there's a thing about when we as an agency are talking about GEO, it's just saying, what part of it do you want? Like, are we looking at where your brand appears? Are we looking at making more money out of like high intent commercial key phrases, like classic SEO stuff? Are we looking at your employer brand? And I think once you break it up, I found it quite overwhelming the last year, especially about like, how do we actually help our clients be better at it? And then once you sort of chill out a little bit and be like, well, what does it mean? What are we trying to do? So there's a piece there about breaking it down from that, because it's so, you can ask it anything and get an answer, whether you like it or not. But from a commercial perspective, as an agency representing clients, it's more about how do we have the fundamentals for the brand, or just the stages of the funnel, like reputational style stuff, content and engagement style stuff, and how do we be part of the decision-making process, and later perhaps how do we be part of agentic buying and things like that. That makes it a bit easier. I think in terms of my own use of it and personal use of it and how we use it as an agency, I find like things that require language actually really helpful. Like one top tip we have is we put the brief, we have these RFPs all the time, requests for proposals from clients. We put that in and our response and go, where do we hit the mark? Where do we miss the mark? Because that's quite language orientated. It just takes that at face value, takes your answer at face value and goes, you are missing this bit. Whereas your response is so emotional. Okay, we have ICM and things like that. That's great, but still subjective. It goes, you haven't talked about creative, or your measurement slide is missing, question mark, or whatever, to pick an earlier point. But things like that I'm finding for productivity tools fascinating as well. So
what's missing, what's missing is there's a lot more useful than generation in some ways. You know, it was Ian Crocombe. They taught me this. He's like, always ask what would a human miss. You know, so you're looking at it. And I did the whole thing with food as well. I took a picture of my food for every day for like a month and everything I tried. So, well, what am I missing? You know, so which was really good because like your cornflakes doesn't have any sardines with it. You know,
Not again. Damn it. But I think it does it faster, doesn't it, as well? As the other piece, it does it faster than we could do that, but we do 100 other things in the day. You're asking a very specific question. It does it very quickly. So it gives you a sense of confidence.
I don't know, Tom. I'll push you on that though, because it's fast for everyone. You know, my analogy would be like, imagine you got the Eurostar and then you got off the Eurostar. Oh my wow! I got the train. No, like 1,000 other people did it as well. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's but everyone's going, yeah, you know, I used AI to answer this client email. Yeah, but so is everyone else. That's not an advantage. Anyway, calm down. It's the end of the day. Tom, if someone wants to get in touch with you about GEO or anything else, where would you like them to do that?
LinkedIn would be great. Yeah.
And what will make you reply to them?
A message in the first place, that'd be fine. No, just sending something out. I'm happy to chew the fat, to be honest. I mean, that's half the game in the world, isn't it? Like, no one wants to be heavily sold to. Everyone wants to work out if there's a thing.
Absolutely.
That's that, isn't it? That's the key to the world, isn't it? Don't batter someone with something, and then let's have a chat, and something will rattle out of it, or it won't, and that's okay. But fun along the way.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.